Hey guys, it's Ellen. Welcome to my channel. Well, guess what? I went back to some mini Mondays again today, and we're going to talk about dark grounds and using gouache. Yes, gouache again. Today I'll be using the little mini Legion Stonehenge Aqua cold pressed black paper and really simple gouache techniques and colors. We're only going to use 3 primary colors and then white and black to create these super cute minis. Like I said, super easy, and then you get a little more sophisticated and more advanced when you start adding in values and tones and all that nonsense that I will talk about. So also I have some traceable for the Patreon members, and there's an additional one that I didn't do here that I put on the traceable for the Patreon members, and the traceable looks a little bit different than this because I just went right ahead and painted this. So if it's not something that you feel comfortable with, you have traceable, and if you're a Patreon member, you can download that. If you're not a Patreon member, it's just a place people go to get ad-free videos from YouTube, traceables, exclusive tutorials on Thursdays, and a live stream on the top tier once a month. So that's 4 extra tutorials a month on my Patreon. That is a lot. Like, I don't think many Patreon members do that, creators. That are more sophisticated, more in detail, that come with reference photos and traceables. And it's just a place people go and support my channel, which I appreciate so much. So if you haven't hit that bell notification button, please do so you know my tutorial's up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and let's get painting some mini botanicals. So let me go over supplies. I have this mini Legion paper. It's a Stonehenge Aqua cold press in black. Right, and if you ever wondered how to paint with black paper, this is where we get a little tutorial on this. I'll be using probably my Princeton 6 Velvet Touch series, maybe my 8 long round, I don't know, and maybe my 8 Velvet Touch series round. Small brushes, small paper. Bigger brushes on this paper would be kind of crazy, and we're only going to use, because if not everyone's familiar with gouache, I have a tutorial link in here about why I think gouache is amazing. And I'm just going to use basic, simple colors today, right? So you need a white. I didn't put black in here. I could put black in here, actually. Yellow. So I'm going to use, I have a yellow deep here, peacock blue again, and a primary magenta. So I'll have those linked in here as well. So if you don't want to go out and buy a ton of gouache because you're not sure if you like it or not, and here's the black. I actually have an old tube, a big black. I don't even know if I'll use it, but I'll just put some over here anyway. Since the paintings are going to be small, a little goes a long way. And yes, you can use watercolor brushes or wet media brushes. I can tell you that it does put a little wear and tear on your brushes because it's just a thicker medium. So you probably wouldn't use my best brush. So maybe you have a 6 round that's kind of getting a little worn. That would be the one to use, right? But the brushes that I use are generally not very expensive, so very simple. Like I said before, a Patreon, I give them an extra little traceable. It's not necessary for what we're doing today. So we're just going to go over mixing some color of gouache and putting on this black paper. And that's why I love gouache, is that you can paint it on like really flat, dark colored surfaces. You can actually paint, I'll do another tutorial about this one, paint and underline like a coat of dark color and then paint on top of that, similar to acrylic. But gouache can be reactivated like watercolor, unlike acrylic, right? Because acrylic just dries and it's permanent. So you can reactivate gouache if it's regular gouache. There is acrylic gouache, and that is similar to acrylic paint, so you can't reactivate that. But this is why gouache is fun, and it's like it drives this like flat, matte kind of style. It's very graphic kind of style, which I love. And you can water it down like watercolor. So it has dual purpose, which is kind of fun. So we're going to play around with this black paper and see what we come up with. All right, I didn't mention everything else that I have already here. I have a bunch of water jars here and paper towel. And I've already pre-mixed some colors. So like I said, I have peacock blue, magenta, and yellow, permanent yellow deep for the gouache, and a white and a black. And then I've mixed the peacock and the yellow like I do almost all my videos that you see on YouTube, and made some greens, right? And add a teeny bit of the magenta in the screen to make it a little bit more olivey. But it's pretty much the same thing you see in every video that I have on YouTube. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. So I'm just grabbing the 8 long round brush, and I just got a little bit of water on my brush, so I really wanted it opaque. And we're going to stop doing something really simple. We'll just do like a fern, right? And I have this camera angle on an angle so you can see me holding the brush and how I do this. I'm tilting the paper too. So I hold the brush kind of like here, close to the end, but not up here, more control here, right? And this is just a simple technique for this fern. You don't even need a trace or anything for this. You just do a little curve and pull down. Super simple. Now, on these leaves here, they're going to get bigger as they go out and smaller on top. So maybe you go like this, you just wiggle here from the bottom. You can start from the top too, but sometimes it might be easier from the bottom. And you're wiggling it. And I have it kind of going off the page. And you're kind of wiggling it and going with the curvature of the stem that you just painted in. Now I'm doing the dark color first, and we're going to add highlights on top of that. Unlike watercolor, you can't do that. This is similar to having acrylic paint. What is different is that it's like watercolor, that you can activate it with water. You can't do that with acrylic paint. They do make acrylic gouache, so it's similar to acrylic paint, and you cannot reactivate that. See how I'm just kind of taking the tip and wiggling it? There was no effort whatsoever involved, and I might make my stem a little bit thicker, right? That's just a simple, super easy fern. You could do a teeny one here, same premise. Just like that. So it will dry fairly fast like watercolor. The beauty is that I sometimes like to work with it on top when it's wet, and it won't bleed like a watercolor. It's just different. So you can clean up your brush or just grab it dirty and grab this light green color, and we're going to just go on top here and do little highlights on the top part of the fern leaves. See that? I'm just wiggling the little line right here. It's getting the highlight. Call them highlights, lowlights, just like in your hair actually, when you get your hair colored, if you get your hair colored. And then on the stem, if you can kind of put a little bit of green also, right? You can get even more highlights by adding a little more white. See, I'm adding some white to the gouache, just a little bit here. So it's really, really light green, and get even more highlights. So you're just wiggling on the edge there. Just highlighting the tips of this particular edge of this fern. It just makes it a little more sophisticated, a little more kind of professional looking with those highlights. More of a botanical style. And I'm doing the same highlights on, I didn't even use the medium highlights, I used the really light one on the baby fern. And then going down on the stem, right in the middle. Now, the gouache will add some wear and tear to your nice watercolor brushes. Going back and adding the medium, green, and playing around with adding some of this color on the bottom. You play around with it until you see if you like it, and add some more into the stem here. And that is a simple, simple fern. Looks like a nice botanical with a dark ground. We're going to move on to another easy thing to do. I think it's funny that I talked about having the number 6 and number 8, but I didn't use them yet. I'm using the 8 long round. It just happened to go that way. So here I'm going to be using yellow, mostly yellow, and this is the permanent yellow deep. Now it's right out of the tube like this. It's pretty intense. You can add a teeny bit of this magenta, which I did over here, right? And then even still, maybe a little more magenta. It's a little orange. Can you guess what we're going to paint right now? Yes. It could be a black-eyed Susan or a sunflower, whatever you want to do it. Kind of hybrid of both. So you picture your circle is going to be here, right? If you have to draw it in with the pencil, draw it in with the pencil. It could be one big one, by the way, or a couple small ones. And then you just take your brush. Now, because this is like at a great point, you can kind of vision the circle is going to be here, just pushing down and kind of going, connecting to that circle. And you just move the paper around. If you want it facing forward. If you're not moving the paper around, your body is naturally going to make the leaves not kind of facing forward as you're fighting against your own brush. But I'm kind of going around. And don't worry if you paint in the center, unlike the watercolor, we can go right on top of it. I see that? I kind of want these ones to face forward a little bit. So I can move it around like this. Just like that. And then do the other one. Pretty simple. I'm going a little faster. It already has the point from the brush. You don't need to fiddle with it. And if it's a little worn or more paint on it, it's going to be a rounded. See how that one had so much paint? The tip of the flower petal got just kind of mushed and not as pointy. Adding more paint, a little thicker. See, this got too. What happens when you water it down? It's translucent. But when you put it on, that's not. It's opaque. Just like this. Now, I'm going to teach you kind of fun things to do with the gouache. It's kind of like acrylic painting. You can just go right in here and add. I'm going to add some more of this magenta to yellow. So you can go right here on top of this. Add these orangey colors, or even just grab some more magenta. See, going right in there. Getting right in there and not afraid. It's not going to bleed. And if it, see, it's pretty dark, but we can always just go on top of that again. Many times. See that? Grab some more yellow. I can grab some white, make it lighter. Go on top of that again, see? And then you're kind of just doing this really cool blending technique, kind of like you would do for acrylic painting. Kind of blending those colors as they're on top of each other. See how they're kind of mixing in as I'm putting the paint on top of it? And I've lost a lot of my yellow. Don't fret. Unlike watercolor, you can go back. See? Take some more paint. And go right. I'm cleaning up my brush a little bit. I'm not even going to put the water on it to clean it because that means it's going to get more translucent. Go right back on. Yellow. And I always like to add a little white because the white's going to make it even lighter. Here we go. That white. With this really, really light yellow. And you get that highlight. See that just boom. Add some more white. These are the kind of tricks you kind of do with gouache, with with acrylic too. See, if I added that really light yellow. These are things that you can't do with watercolor. You can do with gouache. And also, you can play with this more because, like I said, you can activate it with water. So it can become translucent. So I'll go back with some of these petals and make them darker again. Adding a little blue. Oh, trying to get that brown color. Remember, I'm only using 3 colors. And I can even actually cheat and add a little black. Get that brownish tone. Some of the sunflowers have like yellow, orange, brown. We're going to need the brown anyway for the center. And then just go back and you add the yellow again. Right? And then we're going to take our greens that are mixed up. Same greens in the front. Just going to go curve down here. I'm going to make the stems a little thicker though because it's a kind of like a sunflower. I think it's a hybrid sunflower to me. This one's bending, this one's not. We can have a nice stem coming off it there and off here. And then from there make a big leaf. Wiggle, wiggle. down. This one can be pointing downward. Wiggle, wiggle. Fill in the leaf. Can have another part out here. Get creative. And then under here, I'm going to put another leaf right on top of this. So much easier in gouache to go on top of another color. See that? And then you grab your lighter greens, even while it's damp. And you can kind of blend it. Just go on top. A little bit here and here. And that would be shadow under this one. And then up in this one, you can put the little vein. And you can get even lighter still. Remember that green from the first fern? That really light pale one? Just doing the highlights. Right here on the edge. Get a little yellow to that too. This is all the cool things you can do with gouache. That's why I like it. I've used it for so many years, way before I used watercolor. And then the brown. So we made the brown with the yellow, red, and blue. You can fill in the brown. Doesn't want to cooperate. There's already some black there that I didn't paint over, so I can just use that as the center part. Fill this part in brown. And I have black paint. I can go back in here. Pretty simple, kind of cool sunflower botanical, right? You can get technical and more advanced by adding in more shadowed yellows and orange tones, reddish orange yellow tones, kind of in here under the leaves, petals in here, getting closer towards the sunflower. And then you might want to do a little highlight. It can be white, it can be yellow. Just a little like line that goes like that. Curve. And you get a little highlight. And again, you can highlight this leaves even lighter. See? A little highlight. Woohoo! Like the sun was hitting it. I tried a little bit later. I can go add a little vein in there. Just a little touch of the highlight. All right, let's move on. Okay, so for the last one, that would be kind of fun to do something more colorful. In my garden, we just pulled out some radishes. I think you saw my Instagram story, and we've never grown them. This is our first year, so I thought that'd be kind of fun to. I have a radish in my Patreon ink and wash tutorial that I did last week. I thought it would be fun to do a gouache one. So they're kind of, you know, pink and white. With this, like I talked about, gouache you can paint. Yeah, I'm going to add a little white to this magenta. So we can set up maybe just putting the pink part, right? So it's just basically a radish. It's kind of an oblong, not really a circle. They can be though. They come out kind of that. I can add some more magenta on here. And then they have the white. So you can take the white, kind of blend it. And it's kind of pink, and then kind of do the little wiggle. And we'll go back over it again. I could even take that white, right? Do that oblong kind of shape. I got it all messy on my paintbrush. It doesn't really matter. Now, people are like, oh, it's hard to move the paint. Then you definitely have to add a bit of water if you can't move the paint. And I'm gonna get that white in there and do that little wiggle. I'm gonna let this dry a bit and then go back over it again with white and the magenta. Right? In the meantime, play around with the leaves. So this time I'm gonna add more or less, it's really just bright green. And so it's just a simple kind of, go out and wiggle back in kind of shapes like that. Really just big old leaves like that. Nothing super fancy. We're just gonna have fun with the gouache. Put another one here that's a little smaller, connecting. So they're kind of like goofy, big in shape, but that's okay. Right? We can get a little more sophisticated by adding some colors. So it's drying now. I'm going to go back in with my magenta on this part, get it a little bit darker. I could add a little white to make it not so dark. Go back over here. It's very exciting to pull them up. If you garden, you know how I feel. I might add a little bit of green to that magenta, just to tone it down a bit. It doesn't matter if it's bright though. I kind of like it too. You see, this is kind of wet and loose. Now I'm going to go in and add the white, pure white again. Let's actually get some yellows in mine, but that's okay. I'm going to kind of wiggle this back in. See how I can paint the white right back on with that color? You see? And I can still kind of blend it into the pinky kind of color here too. Tricky, huh? And I'm going to grab some more magenta. I'm blending it. Blending. That's how you blend in gouache, by the way. Kind of similar to acrylic. I don't know why I'm talking so softly, guys. Maybe it's because it's Monday. I know some people were sad that I was not giving up completely on Mini Monday. I just said I needed a break. I had to do something different. I really felt like viewership was down on Mini Mondays. No, people weren't liking them. It was not getting a lot of views. So if you really like Mini Mondays, maybe you should tell the world. Because it have to do things that make sense for viewership. See how I just blended that? It was still kind of wet in here. And I blended that. Now, up here, we're going to do similar. It's that light green, but I'm going to add some more yellow. Put some up here. It's to my green. Could even add a little white. And I'm just going to kind of put in some light green color. See how I just kind of wiggled right on top of that wet gouache color. And then maybe put some lines on the outside. I could even get even lighter. Like we talked about, adding a little bit of white. And look how much more sophisticated it looks, right? It doesn't have that goofy flat texture. And then go back in with the blue and get this green darker. This is that peacock blue and magenta. See, it looks purple. Then you add yellow. 3 colors. There is a, I don't know if it was a tutorial. It might have been a tutorial or a live on my Patreon. I went over just the 3 colors to make, no, it was a tutorial. 3 colors to paint a sunset on the beach. Yep. You don't need a million colors to paint that. But you do need bright colors. So here I'm going in and adding dark green. And look at that. It doesn't look like a goofy, making some green mess here. But you see how simple that was to make it a little more sophisticated? You get my idea, guys. You get me. That's why you guys are awesome. All right. And I'm going back here and add a little more, leaving a little space here. And that's simple. What do you think? So there was another one that I gave Patreon for a sketch for that's a bonus. Just these simple little things that we did today. Right? Sunflowers, radish, and a fern. This is super easy. Getting a little more sophisticated here, and then super easy again, but then you get sophisticated by blending in the colors and adding those dark values. And you have this really great design. Play with some black paint there. Play with some gouache. You don't need to buy the whole 9 yards of gouache. I start with the basics. So I would recommend a yellow, which is this great one. I like this yellow because it's kind of like the deep yellow that I use with the watercolor. It's the primary magenta, the permanent yellow deep, the peacock blue. I would get a black with gouache, and I would get a white. So 5. That's not that much. And then, they're not that expensive. And if you can't afford Holbein, you can get some cheaper versions. We've talked about how simple it is to do this design, right? Get a little more sophisticated with this one. And then this one's a combination of both. It's goofy and simple, and then you fill in sophistication with the values of leaves and blending the radish. So I hope you guys try to use some gouache. It's a lot of fun to play with. Like I said, we can water it down like watercolor. It's fun to add with your watercolor. Like I showed you in my main, I'll link it in here, gouache, one I put out like a week or two ago. And playing with painting on dark ground paper. Look how cool that looks. You could do a whole slew of paintings. You could do all botanicals. You could do all herbs. You know, you can just do just all yellow flowers, all pink flowers. So many ideas you can do, and it looks really sophisticated, doesn't it? I mean, picture this is small. This is a mini Monday, but you can do a larger one, and it looks really sophisticated in your kitchen. Kind of a great gift to give somebody. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. Please don't forget to hit the bell notification button to know my tutorial is up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. We have a lot of fun over here. All right, thanks guys. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.